When I first met Tom, it seemed to me that this was fate. He was so attentive, caring, as if he knew what I wanted even before I said it. Our first months were like something out of a movie: breakfast in bed, weekend trips, late-night conversations until dawn. I didn't believe it could be that simple and right. My friends were jealous. My mother said that this was the man. I agreed. I didn't know then that a perfect fairy tale could turn into a maze of doubts. Everything changed after one chance encounter. I was working in the marketing department when a new specialist was transferred to us. His name was Alex. At first glance, nothing special. But there was some kind of calm confidence in him, an inner strength that cannot be explained. He wasn't trying to please her, but that was what got her. We started chatting, first at work, then over coffee after lunch. I wasn't looking for anything new, really. I had Tom. But every conversation with Alex left a strange aftertaste inside. I found myself waiting for Monday morning, just to see him again. Alex and I discussed everything: books, movies, childhood, dreams. He asked questions that surprised me, not banal, not out of politeness. And he was listening. The present, carefully. Sometimes I thought he understood me better than Tom did. But I convinced myself that it was just a working-class thing. It's okay to make friends with a colleague. But inside, a sense of anxiety began to grow. I was thinking about Alex more and more often, even when I was spending time with Tom. And one day I caught myself not responding to a message from Tom because I corresponded with Alex. Tom began to notice that I was moving away. He asked, "Are you tired?" and I nodded, not looking into his eyes. I felt guilty, but also annoyed. It seemed to me that Tom had become predictable. Everything that used to be exciting was now just a backdrop. We stopped laughing. His touch became familiar, and his conversations became short. Sometimes I thought, maybe this is adult love? Stability. Calmness. But then why do I miss Alex, and not when we break up even for a day? It was an ordinary corporate event. Wine, music, laughter. Alex came in a suit that I didn't expect. He looked different, more confident, more mature. We laughed a lot, took photos as friends. But there was a moment. One glance, one touch of his hand, and something clicked inside. It's like I've woken up. Everything went quiet, and only we remained. I do not know if anyone noticed, but for me it was a start. From that night on, I couldn't pretend anymore. There was someone in my life who made my heart beat differently. I started avoiding Tom. I came up with things to do, stayed at work longer. I didn't say anything to Alex, but I felt like he knew. It was like we were both walking on the edge. Every time he passed by and accidentally touched my hand, a flame would flare up inside. I was afraid. I was afraid to destroy what I was building with Tom. I was afraid of being the one they write about in sad stories. But most of all, I was afraid to admit to myself that I liked it. I myself no longer understood where the line was, beyond which there was betrayal. One day Alex and I were alone after work. It started raining heavily. We took shelter under the awning at the exit, both soaked and confused. He looked at me and said, "I know you're not free. And I'm not asking for anything. But you should know that you are important." I was scared. Not from his words, but from what I felt in response. It wasn't a flirtation, it wasn't a game. He was sincere. And I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I wanted to be honest, at least with myself. And that night I realized that I could no longer live in a double reality. I decided to talk to Tom. No scenes, no accusations. Just tell me how I feel. But when I saw how he smiles when he meets me at home, how he sets tea and tells me about his day, I froze. My words are stuck. I couldn't destroy this comfort, this familiar warmth. And she lied again. She went back into the room, saying she was tired. I got worse. Now I didn't just feel guilty, I was drowning in it. Everything that seemed clear before has become confusing. How can you love one and think about something else? It could all come out one day. Tom came to work early to pick me up after an important meeting. But he happened to be a witness to the conversation between Alex and me. We didn't speak directly, but the intonations, the looks, the subtle hints, everything was clear. I saw Tom through the glass door. He stood and watched. And I didn't know how much he'd heard. He didn't come over. He just left. At that moment, everything inside me collapsed. He didn't call last night. He didn't write. And then I realized that everything I was afraid of destroying may have already been destroyed. On the fourth day, Tom wrote. Just one message, we need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time without answering. My heart was pounding, as if I'd run away from home and been found. We met in the park in the evening. He was silent, looking away. Then he said, I get it. Just tell me, are you feeling better with him? I didn't know what to say. Because there was no yes or no. There were only tears. And the fear that I'm forever losing the kindest person in my life. After talking to Tom, I couldn't sleep. I could hear his voice in my head, and his eyes were in front of me. He wasn't angry. He was just devastated. What about me? I regretted that I was dishonest. With it. With him. With Alex. All three of us were now trapped in the same place, which I had created. I tried to justify myself mentally. They say, the heart does not choose. But the truth was, I chose silence when I had to speak. And now she didn't know how to live with it anymore. I noticed that Alex was starting to behave differently. He avoided personal conversations, kept his distance. At work, we started talking only about the case. There was something new in his eyes' wariness, even disappointment. I didn't know how he felt, but I felt that I was no longer a mystery to him, but a problem. Maybe he didn't want to be the reason for the breakup? Or did he realize that our feelings weren't that pure? Anyway, I started losing both of them. And it was more frightening than loneliness. I decided to call Tom. I invited him to dinner. I wanted to explain myself, tell him that I was confused, that it hurt, that I didn't want to hurt him. He came. Calm, but detached. I talked a lot, incoherently, sincerely. He listened, but did not make eye contact. When I finished, he just said, I do not know if I can trust you again. But I'm glad you told the truth. It was honest. But it also hurts. Because the truth is not always the key to salvation. Sometimes it's the end. A few days have passed and no one has written. Neither Tom nor Alex. The world became quiet. Too much. I realized how used I was to the constant attention, to the messages, to the voices that were nearby. And now there's emptiness. In that silence, I began to hear myself. His loneliness. His weakness. His guilt. It was the first time I really felt, I don't belong to anyone. And this is not freedom. This is a test. And if I want to change something, I'll have to start with myself. Without expectations. Without rescuers. I called Meg, my best friend. We met at a cafe where my promotion had once been celebrated. I told her everything. Without embellishment. She listened without interrupting, and then she said, "You're not bad. You're confused. But you have to be honest, not with men. In front of you." Those words pierced me. I've always been looking for love as a salvation. What if, in fact, I was just afraid to be alone? Maybe Alex wasn't fate, but a mirror? And Tom was not a victim, but a man who simply believed in me. The next day, I decided not to wait any longer. I went for a walk alone. No phone, no playlist, no plans. She was just walking. I looked at the people, listened to the city. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living not in someone else's story, but in my own. And I felt better. I didn't know who I was going to be with tomorrow. But I knew for sure that I no longer wanted to get lost in others. I want to understand who I am. Not like someone's girlfriend. It's just me. And start from scratch. That same night, I wrote a letter to Tom. She wrote everything, about her fears, about her doubts, about her mistakes. She wrote that she was grateful for his patience. That maybe I didn't deserve a second chance, but it will still remain a part of my heart. I didn't send this email. I just folded it up and put it in a drawer. It wasn't for him. It was for me. I let everything out. Not for forgiveness. For liberation. And it became a small but important step towards forgiving yourself. Alex came up to me at work. For the first time in 2 weeks. He said, "I'm sorry for being distant. I just didn't want to be the one who destroys." I looked at him and replied, "You didn't destroy it. Everything collapsed before you." We talked for a long time. No hints. Without expectations. He said he still feels a lot for me, but he's not sure if it's worth continuing. And I realized that what we had was really alive. But now is not the time. We both need to understand ourselves before we can be anything to each other. Now I'm alone again. But this is no longer loneliness. It's a choice. The unknown lies ahead. I do not know if Tom will come back. Will there be anything else with Alex? But for the first time, I'm not afraid. Because I feel like I'm starting to listen to myself. I'm not the hero of this story. Not a victim. I am a man who was wrong. Who was looking for love, but found the way to himself. Perhaps this story is still going on. Perhaps the most important thing is just beginning. But is this the end? Or is it just a comma?